Today, let's discuss fame. Fame in a birth chart, okay? I'm going to rank the houses based on how much of an indicator they are for being famous. Every house has the potential for fame for a different reason. So just please be aware of that. But at number 12, the house that I think has the least potential for being innately famous is the fourth house. It makes sense. This is the house of home, your private life, who you are behind closed doors, your family. Unless you have a famous family, this could be an indicator of it. But for the most part, the fourth house is everything literally opposite of fame, and it's about your personal self and your personal life. So fourth house is definitely not really a fame indicator. Number 11 is the seventh house. It has more to do with interpersonal relationships, one-on-one connections, and fame doesn't really have to do with that. It has to do more with these widespread, big kind of popularity and less about these one-on-one relationships. Now, if you're in a relationship with somebody famous, this would be like an indicator of that, of course, but innately, I don't think it equals fame. Number 10 is sixth house. So I don't think the sixth house really indicates fame that much. It more indicates discipline and work ethic, and also it has a lot to do with menial tasks. So in my opinion, the more sixth house stuff you have, I kind of think the less likely you are to be famous because you're so caught up in these menial, mundane tasks. The sixth house is more like the assistant to the famous person, the live-in assistant or live-in nanny to the famous person. They're not usually famous themselves. At number 9 is second house energy. Now, honestly, a lot of rich people have second house energy because it's all about the money that you have and the money that you make. So it makes sense that they do. However, I don't think that second house innately in itself equals somebody that specifically wants to be famous. It's more about somebody that wants to have a lot of money and funds, but they may not want to have their face out there. Yes, I see so much second house energy with like self-made celebrities, but I just don't think it innately in itself is a fame indicator that much. So that's why it's kind of towards the bottom, but a little bit higher than the very bottom, Kind of piggybacking off of that same idea is the eighth house. The eighth house in itself does not indicate somebody that wants to be famous at all by any stretch of the matter. It's usually somebody that doesn't want to be in the media much at all. However, the eighth house does indicate things like royalty. It can sometimes like pass down inheritance, pass down legacy. And so the eighth house is less about your individual fame, but rather the fame and the status of your family and your ancestors and your family name. So it does indicate like famous blood, royal blood. So it's a little bit higher, but innately somebody with eighth house stuff, it doesn't always indicate that. First of all, it can indicate somebody that's really down on their luck for a lot of their life. And it doesn't usually indicate somebody that wants to be very public with their life either. So that's why it's at number 8. Number 7 is first house. Your first house energies, if you're interested in being famous, will do really well for you when you're meeting people. When you're meeting people in your industry, when you're making connections, when you're trying to make a good first impression. Also, the more first house energy that you have, the more you want to put yourself out there, be seen, and have somewhat of a focus on you. However, innately first house stuff does not equal this greater ambition to be famous and have a legacy and leave like a lasting impact. So it's pretty high, but it's definitely not one of the main indicators that I see as somebody that innately wants to be famous, but it can definitely help along the way. Now, moving into the top 6, these are all really big indicators for fame for various reasons. Number 6 is the third house. So this is fame on a local level. This is not fame on a big celebrity international level, but if you want local kind of neighborhood community fame, like, oh, this person's on an episode of Cops, or something like that. That's the third house. It has a lot to do with like niche hobbies as well. So maybe you're like famous for your like niche hobby or niche interest. I would definitely see that with somebody with third house energy. So this may not be somebody that reaches out for fame on a wide scale, but it definitely gives big fish in a small pond sort of energy. So that's why it's at one of the higher placements, but it's at the lowest of the highest, if that makes sense. Number 5 may surprise you. I bet a lot of you guys expected this to be one of the last ones, but it's the 12th house. So innately, I don't think people with the 12th house, I don't know if they want to be famous or not. I think they have a lot of big dreams, but more than that, a lot of famous people have 12th house energy is a huge theme I've seen. I think for 2 reasons. The first reason, because you feel ignored growing up, so you kind of have a complex about yourself that like nobody pays attention to you and you're ignored. So I think it's kind of like trying to seek out validation by having a bunch of people validate you and say you're great and you're famous. I think that's the first reason why there's a lot of 12th house energy with famous people. But the main thing is I think that with fame comes you living a very different, secluded, isolated life than most people, you know? And so because of that, I think that 12th house energy in itself, I don't know if it innately makes you famous. I think it can make you feel like you have some special spark or some special, you know, a mystery or intrigue about you for sure that can make people interested in you. But I think it more has to do with the fact of when you're super famous, you live in isolation. You can't go out grocery shopping within regular community. You can't, you know, just go about your life as you normally would. You have to live in the 12th house of isolation. And also substance issues is very common with celebrities. So I don't think the 12th house innately equals fame, but I see a lot of people with 12th house energy being very, very famous and very successful. Actually, you wouldn't expect it, but they are. But again, this isn't higher because a lot of them just want to like hide away and rot in their bed. So also it gives a lot of creativity. So if you like want to be famous for something creative, this is like that 12th house creativity that we like love to see. Top four. I will not take any notes on this. I know this 4 is correct. You might want to order them differently, but I am correct about this. Number 4 is 5th house. 5th house. You want to be famous. You want to be famous for all the cliche, shallow reasons, and that's okay. That's okay. You want to be famous because you think you're special, because you like doing fun things, you want to party, you want to have your face out there, you want to have your picture out there, you're obsessed with yourself, you want people to be obsessed with you, you really want to create and make things that become famous, you know, you want to be a pop sensation. You have 5th house stuff, right? Acting, singing, dancing, any type of creativity, you want to do it and you want to be famous for it. And you want the luxurious life that comes with it. So 5th house gives the talent and the want, but number 1, 2, and 3 give the popularity that we are really looking for when it comes to fame. Number 3 is 9th house, especially if you have energies conjunct your midheaven. Okay, the 9th house is why somebody wants to be famous. The 5th house is for the people that want to be famous for their creativity, and the 9th house is the people that want to be famous for their beliefs or their politics or the thing that they're passionate about or the thing that they want to revolutionize or the thing that they want to change. Whatever it is, 9th house is all about grander travel. So this is somebody that might go on tour to different countries. This is somebody that might have a very lavish lifestyle. This is somebody that has lived a lot of experiences, done a lot of things, been a lot of places, right? 9th house energy is really like can really translate to a heightened lifestyle and that celebrities have. And especially when it's conjunct the midheaven, this is your reason and want for being famous. Number 2 is 11th house stuff. 11th house is so, I feel like, underrated when it comes to fame. You need 11th house stuff backing up that 10th house and that 5th house to make you popular. If you want to be popular, if you want to have a fan base and a fan group behind you, and you want to root yourself into the culture, you need 11th house stuff. Now, the thing about 11th house is it's just the social side. It's just the connections. It's the networking. It's the popularity. It's having fans. It's having a fandom about you, right? But if you only have 11th house stuff, then you are going to be the person that is making the fandom. You need 5th house stuff, 9th house stuff, and number 1, which is 10th house stuff, to have the reason to be famous and want to make it about you that's famous. But you need that 11th house to have the support of the fans and the fandom. Okay, listen to me when I say that. It's so true. Number 1, of course, every astrologer in the world says this, every astrologer in the world agrees on this, is the 10th house. However, something that I want to say about the 10th house, it's your midheaven, it's your public life, it's your career, it's all that kind of stuff. Something I want to say though, just because you have a sun in the 10th house, just because you have a 10th house stellium does not mean you're going to be famous. It means you're probably going to be very self-conscious and hyper self-aware, and sometimes that can actually restrict your fame. You need things in the 5th, 9th, or 11th house to make you want to put yourself out there and be unabashed and unashamed and unapologetic. So the 10th house is definitely the number 1 house for fame, but it can be very self-aware and self-conscious. And it has more to do with practical business matters, where the 11th, 9th, and 5th house have more to do with the creative matters of being famous. 10th house is like CEO energy, and we need those other houses to add some kind of flavor as to why you're famous.